Now if you take a look at this here, you can see that yeast has already started to bubble and to work, which tells me that it's alive and well, and that's about all I need. I don't have to wait for this to go all crazy in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll take this, actually I'll stir it up first to make sure I get the sediment if there's anything on the bottom. I don't want that to stay behind in the tray. There we go. Now I'll just carefully dump this in here, as you can see. There we go. And now comes the real job. I'll just move this away from now. Now comes the real job. And don't be squeamish. If you've washed your hands beforehand like I did, you can just go like this and start working the liquid into the flour, or the flour into the liquid, and that gives you a good idea of the consistency and the temperature. It should feel nice and warm to your hand. See, the flour is cool, so that's why we start out with relatively warm water, because by the time that flour gets all mixed in, the whole mixture will have cooled down quite a bit. Here we go. A little bit more. We're getting there. See that? We're getting there. And it looks a little dry now, but by the time I've mixed it, chances are that it'll be just about right. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's done, and I'll demonstrate what it's like when it's done. And you see that it sticks to my fingers, and that is normal. What I like about this bowl is it's large enough, and it's, see? There's always this stuff here in the middle that tends to get overlooked. That has to come up to the dry flour that collects in the middle underneath. Here we go. Whoops. Oh, look at that. I'm almost done. You don't want any dry flour left over in the mixture if you can help it. There's a bunch. Should be all absorbed in there. Because if there is dry flour in there, it's not going to hurt your bread if you have a little bit of dry flour in there. It just won't look quite so nice, because then somebody will say, oh, well, you didn't mix it quite right, because you'll have some blotches in there of a different color. But it shouldn't affect your bread, really. Now, as you can see, or as I can see, my dough may be just a tiny little bit on the dry side. And that depends probably on the kind of flour you use. Incidentally, flour that is sold in the United States has slightly different properties from flour that is sold in Canada. I can't tell you exactly what the difference is, but some expert bakers certainly know the difference. See, I'm adding a little bit of water. Some expert bakeries certainly know the difference, and some recipes are quite sensitive to that. Since I'm using an American recipe and Canadian flour, I may have to make a little bit of allowance for that. we go. All the kneading that's ever done on this is what I'm doing right now to mix the dough. There will not be any kneading later on. It is necessary, and as a matter of fact, it probably is even undesirable. So I've got this quite mixed. As you can see, it's quite wet, and that's the way it should be. Now, after I clean my hand and pat this down a little bit to distribute it across the pan, I'm going to let it sit. What you can do is you can let it sit and rise anytime you want right now, or you can take this and put it in the fridge and store it there for several days if you need to before you use it. And when you do, you can take out as much as you want at any one time, bake your bread, and put whatever leftover dough you have, put it back into the fridge until next time. This dough is such that it actually improves, at least in my experience, it improves in taste slightly when it's aged in that manner. But I'm never patient enough to do that. I just take the whole batch and bake it all at once, and then when it's all baked, I end up putting most of the loaves into the freezer, freeze them up, and take them out as I need them, thaw them out, and they will taste as fresh as the day they were baked. So I've got this now. I'm just spreading it out a little bit to make it easier for the dough to rise and to fill the... You see, that's not quite half my container. By the time this has risen, it will fill the container completely, and so that's when I know that it's risen enough, and that's when I'll proceed to baking. Okay, so I hope this was clear. I hope I wasn't too fast, and we'll see what happens after that. I'm going to have to wash my hands, and then I'll come back and put the lid on and put it away. Alright, so now here is the container with the dough, and it's closed now with its lid. I'm going to take it to the oven, and I set the oven. I'm doing this freehand, so it's not quite so nice. I'm going to set this to bake, which means the heat comes from the bottom. And I'm going to set the temperature. Maybe I can show that a little better. Hold on. Here we go. I'm going to set the temperature to, well, less than 150 degrees, maybe just